Hello guys, my name is Dustin, also known as Razor Game Dev, and welcome to the first episode of this Lua programming tutorial. So, today I'm going to talk about what Lua is, what Lua is used for, and we're going to get started on some of the basic concepts of Lua, the programming language. So, like I said, Lua is a programming language, and if you want to go to their main website, all you have to do is go to www.lua.org. And Lua is a scripting language that's written in C, that's extremely performant. People say it's probably the fastest scripting language on the market, which makes it perfect for things like application development and games. I think the biggest use of Lua right now is actually in the gaming market and field. It's used to embed in C++ projects. It's used to as a scripting language, as like a alternative to something like a JSON file. So Lua is a very expressive, very interesting, very simple and easy to learn programming language. But surprisingly, there's not actually a lot of good tutorials out there on the language itself. It's a little bit hard to get into, so that's what I'm going to try to do today and in the following episodes. So let's give you a little taste. This is what Lua looks like. So as you can see, it's very simple. It's not very verbose. It's very expressive, as in you use words to express concepts instead of symbols a lot of times, which is kind of nice. It's kind of nice if you're learning. So yeah, if you don't like the sound of my voice, you don't want to, deal with all this, you can go over to the manual. But sometimes it's easier just to watch a video and kind of get an explanation. But yeah, the manual's right here. It's a very good manual. It's very dense, so keep that in mind. So to get started with Lua, click the download button and scroll down. It's not this big download button unless you want to actually build it from source. But you have to find a binary. A binary is something that's already compiled that your computer can run. So we're going to go click Get a Binary right here. We're going to go down to our platform. I'm on a Windows machine, though Lua runs very well on all platforms, really all platforms. On Linux, you should even have Lua probably already installed. Anyway, so we're going to click that Windows link, and we're going to scroll down to the 5.3.4 release 1. And then we're going to click this top download right here. So this is the newest version of Lua. Lua 5.1 is still used. But I'm going to be using the newest version of Lua to show off all the features and all that. So let's open up our Explorer. This is our file Explorer, right? And we actually have to install it. So what this package gives us is the executables to run Lua, but that's not very useful right now. To be able to actually use it, we want to go into our C drive, we want to go into our program files, and we're going to create a new folder called Lua. Inside that folder, we're going to drag and drop all these executables in the DLL right in there. And then we should be set to actually, we'll be set to continue forward. To actually get Lua to run though, because we want to be able to run it from a command prompt like this. We want to say type in Lua and be able to run it. To do that, we actually need to append this directory to our path. Now the global path, if you just type in path in your search bar right here, the global path is something that allows your command prompt to basically find applications and programs so you can run them. So go look for something that says path down here, right here. And I have a lot of things right here. You probably won't have as many, but you want to click new and you want to copy this right here. Copy this directory. So just right click, copy, click new, paste it right there. Now I already did this, so I'm not going to actually paste that in, but you will click OK and you should be good. Now to actually run your Lua, you want to click your Windows key and then R and then start CMD, command prompt. So you just type it in right there and you get your nice command prompt. And if everything works out, you might need to restart your computer if you don't see anything, but you should be able to type in Lua and you'll get this nice interactive Lua shell. So one thing you can do right now is just type print, then hello world, and then click enter. And as you can see, you can run commands in this shell right here. You can do 1 plus 2 plus 3, and it'll actually evaluate it. And you have a very powerful calculator right here. Okay, so now let's talk about tools that you can use to edit your Lua code. So there's several really good tools out there, but the three that I recommend are Visual Studio Code. This is the one I recommend if you're brand new to programming, if you're brand new to Lua programming and all that. So you just want to go to code.visualstudio.com, and then you'll see this big green download button. You can download it. It's super easy to install. Also, I highly recommend Sublime Text 3 or 2, either or. Um, both are very good. I used to use this as my main editor for years. And then if you want to get a little bit more hipster and and you want to up your programming game, then I recommend downloading the Vim editor. Now Vim is not something that's very easy to get into. There's a running joke that if you want to generate a random sequence of characters, you just ask someone to get out of Vim or save a file in Vim or something. It's a running joke, but once you learn Vim, you'll find it to be very powerful. And that's actually the tool I'll be using in this tutorial series. All right, so we're going to get started writing our script. So what I did was I created a folder in my documents and named it Lua tutorial. What we're going to do is we're going to click new and we're going to click text document. And I'm just going to name this my script. All right. And then you should see this extension. If you don't see this extension, you want to go over to view and click file name extensions. Tick that and you should see that it's a text file. We actually want to change this, so we're going to right click this, click rename, and we're going to rename it to .lua. And then that's our Lua script. Now you want to open this up in your editor of choice. I'm going to open it up with Vim. And now we have an empty file that you can type in. All right, so how do we actually, well, let's first type in print hello world like we had before. Now, how do we actually get this to run and print on our screen? Well, if you type up here where in your directory, if you type cmd, it'll open up your command prompt. Now, if you type in Lua and then the name of the file, so script.lua, you'll actually run your code. So that's really nice. That's really nice. So that's how we can actually build our applications up. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is variables. All right, so what is a variable? How are they used? And kind of what is the idea of a variable? So you can think of a variable as a container for a value. So a container for a value that you can poke around in, you can change the value, you can put that value in other containers, and it's basically the universal way to lay out data. So what does that look like? So we're going to give our variable a name. We're going to name it my var, and we're going to give it the value of 10. All right. So we now basically assign a variable named my var and put in the value 10. So how do we check what's in that container? Well, we can use the print keyword. So type in print and open and close parentheses, and then type in my var, just like that. Now, if we go back to our command prompt and we type in Lua script, we should see 10. So it just basically printed what was in this container. So let's create another one, this other. Let's just name it other and give it the value of 40. Sure, why not? Now, what we can do is perform math on these variables. So we can say my var plus other. So if we run this right now, we'll see that we get the number 50. So as you can see, we can perform many math operations. So let's create result and make it equal to my var minus other. Oh, now make sure that you get the capitalization of your variables correctly. As you can see, I'm putting a capital O in front of things. Everything needs to be spelled out exactly how it was before, or else Lua doesn't know what variable you're talking about. So we're going to print out what's in the container result. And as you would expect, it's -30 because we take my var and we subtract, which is 10, and we subtract 40 from it. So this is a little confusing. You know, a lot of people say that they're not going to be any good at programming because they're bad at math. And I find that kind of funny because in math, you don't tell the variable what it is, you find what value the variable is. Whereas this, you get to explicitly tell it what math to do and what value it is, which is really nice if you think about it. Again, we can divide. Other operators are the multiply. You can multiply them out. So these are the operators that you can use. So you can use plus, minus, divide, times. You can do, I believe you can do power. Let me check. If not, there is a way to do power. Oh, Just a second. I'm going to put a couple symbols right here, and I'll explain why in a little bit. So let's run our script. And yeah, as you can see, you can do power. All right. So as you can see, when I put these two minus signs right here, let's get rid of a lot of this right here. When I put these two minus signs right there, everything else turned gray. And that's because we can actually document our code. So if we want to write like a sentence in our code and not have it run, we put two minus signs, and then we can say, hello world, this won't run, right? Now if we try to run our script, nothing will happen. If we remove these characters right there, we'll see that Lua gives us an error, syntax error near field or near world. It doesn't know what this code is. So let's say we want to do, well, like as you can see, you can type things out and all that, but if you go down to the next line, you know, it's not commented out. So if you want to do multi-line comments, you'll do two minus signs followed by two open square brackets, and then you go down and you do two closing square brackets. Now a lot of times your editor will help you with this, but now you can do multiple lined comments and all that. And it's really important to document your code very thoroughly. Okay, so we learned about how you can perform math operations on your variables. But what if we want to store something like text? Like if we want to prompt the user, like type in your name or something like that. Well, we can store text. Oh, not yet. We can store text in a variable also, but we need to do a couple things. So we're going to say text is equal. Now you can't just type out the word that you want to store. You actually have to put it in quotation marks. Just like earlier, if you remember, we did print hello world, we have to do the same thing. It has to be in quotation marks. And that is because that signifies to Lua that this isn't code that's in here, this is a string. So now if we type in print and then text, now I wrote a little batch script to help us run the code a little easier. But as you can see, this prints hello world out. So another thing you can do with strings is you can do multi-line strings. So if you want a really long string, so my long text, you can do two open square brackets, but remember to follow it up with two closing square brackets. Now you can do like, let's copy this text and just paste it like a ton of times in here. Oh, let's do that, yank, there we go. So as you can see, you know, we can really fill this up with a lot of text, which can be useful, and then we can print it out. Another thing you can do is combine text. So we have, let's just name this part 1. We're going to just make it hello. Then part 2 is equal to world. Now if we want to create full text, we can say part 1 dot dot, these two dots right here, part 2. Now let's print out full text. And as you would expect, it's the whole word right now, hello world. So this is called the concatenation operator. This takes the first string on the left and combines it with the string on the right. So you can do things like, you know, you could even do it right like this and then pass in a value, right? Hello 0 and then world. And as you would imagine, it says hello 0 world, like that. So that's how you can kind of combine text. And this will automatically turn into a string. So yeah, that's strings in a nutshell. There's a lot of other things you can do with them, but for just a simple entry-level tutorial, that's what strings are used for. Okay, so now the last variable type that we're going to be talking about right now is something called the Boolean. So what a Boolean is basically a binary value that either says that's either true or false. So these are used to check logic and are used everywhere in programming. So if we want to set something to true, so we're going to say my Boolean is equal to true. If we print my Boolean is equal to true, we'll see that's equal to true. So that's not very useful. But what is this Boolean used for really? So let's do var 1 is equal to 100, and then var 2 is equal to, let's say, 32. So we're going to say var 1 is double equals var 2. So this says, is var 1 equal in value to var2. Now this looks different. So regular, like if we want to assign a value to a variable, if we want to put an object in a container, essentially, we have a single equal sign. But if we want to check the value in a container is equal to another value in another container, we would do a double equal sign. So that's something that you can kind of mess up on early on. So really hammer this in to your brain, is that double equals means compare the two values. Single equals mean assign a value. All right, so if we run this, we'll see that it's false because var1 is equal to 100, var2 is equal to 32, which means var1 is not equal to var2, which means it will be false. We can do a couple other things. We can do greater than. So if we run this, it is true. But I'm actually going to speed this up a little bit. So I'm going to cut this and paste this in here, right? And I'm going to copy and paste this down here. So we're going to do equals then, greater than, less than. We're going to do greater than or equal to. We're going to do less than or equal to. And then we're going to do not equal to. All right, so not equal to is a tilde, which is right to the left of the one key, and you have to click Shift tilde. It's a little bit weird, but you'll get used to it real fast. And yeah, those are all your binary operations that you can do, or at least most of them. Unexpected symbol. So as you can see, we have a little error, and it's because we left this in. This isn't valid Lua code, so we're going to comment that out. And as you can see, we get printed out false, true, false, true, false, true. And you can deduce if that's all correct yourself. Okay, one thing I want to mention that I forgot to mention about the strings before we move on is that strings, so let's make a variable. My string can either be double quotes or single quotes, but it can't be both, right? If you look down here, it still thinks that it's in a string. Now you can use the reason why they allow you to use single quotes and double quotes is because then now you can put quotes inside of your string, and that should be valid code. See that? Anyway, so what we're going to be talking about right now is reading values from the user. Because right now our program isn't very useful. We want to be able to get input from the user. So let's create a variable and call it input and set it equal to something called io.read, and then make sure you add these two parentheses. And now we're going to print the value that's in input. All right. Now first up here, I'm going to say print type your name, just like so. So we'll run this, and as you can see, instead of closing, our program is still running right here. And we can now type in a bunch of text right here, and then click enter, and it's going to print the value right there. So real quick, let's talk about what this actually is. So this is something called a function call. You've noticed this right here, and we'll talk about this in more detail right now. I'm just going to give a basic idea of what this is. So somewhere on your computer, there is some code written somewhere else, and a function call is basically a way to run that code outside of this file. So basically, this is some code that says take input from the user and then store it into the value input. So that is very useful. So now we can kind of combine what we use to make a very simple program. So right now we're going to talk about something called if. So if is something that checks the value in a container or a variable and then does some operations. All right, and you can use this to kind of control your code and do certain things, right? So we're going to write a program. We're going to say, we're going to print type your name, right? And then we're going to say, again, we're going to get our input. We're going to name it name, and we're going to make it equal to io.read. Now we want to check what the user typed in. So if you remember, we can say my var is equal to name is equals to hello, right? And this will become a Boolean, right? So if the user typed in name, then we'll get a Boolean. So let's try this out. Or typed in hello. So if we type in some random characters, it's going to say false because what we typed in is not equal to hello. If we type in hello, we'll see that it's set to true. All right, so now we're getting somewhere. So now we can actually use this. So we're going to use the keyword if. So if name is equal to Dustin, then we're going to open up this block. So the then keyword just says then do this next set of instructions. And then the end says this is the block. This is the end of the block that the if statement opened up. All right, so we're going to say print nice name, dude. And we're just going to end it there. So if we run this, we're going to type in Joe. Nothing printed. And now if we type in Dustin, we'll say it says nice name, dude. So why did it not print nice name, dude, when we typed in the name Joe? Well, it's because it says if the name is equal to Dustin, then do this code. If it's not equal to Dustin, it's going to skip everything that's inside this end statement. So you can actually have another if statement inside here and just keep nesting these. And then, you can do more code in here, like declare a variable. Sure, whatever. Anyway, so, whoops. So yeah, so everything that's in here gets skipped over if the value that's in here is not equal. Or if it's and you can also do, just a second, not equal, right? So if the name's not equal to Joe, so Dustin, it'll print that. And then you can't do greater than or equal to when it's a string, but you can with numbers. So let's explicitly say if the name is equal to Dustin, then do this. Otherwise, or else, do this. All right. So if we run this, we'll get some of the same results. We'll say Joe. Yeah, I guess that's okay. All right, and then now we type in Dustin. Remember, it has to have the same case as what you had in the string. This is nice name, dude. All right, so we can say do this or do this, basically. We can also do an else if. So if you type in else if name is equal to Joe, we can do, I don't know, yo, Joe. Now if we type in Joe, let's say yo, Joe, and it will skip this, it'll skip this, because this is the path that it found. So that's really useful. That's our control flow structure of this program. So what happens if we type in a variable right here? So my var is equal to 100. And then now down here, I'm going to print what's in my var. Well, let's type in our name. As you can see, it printed something really weird. It printed something called nil. What is nil? Well, nil says that there's no value in my var. But clearly, we set my var equal to 100. Okay, so this is where things get a little bit interesting. So since this skipped over all the code right here, nothing actually was assigned to my var. And I was all prepared to give this explanation, but then I forgot something very key. So we'll table this. We'll table this right now. So we're going to comment this out, and we're going to be talking about local block. Actually, no. I changed my mind. So we're going to type in Dustin. So now we can see that the value is equal to 100. That makes sense, right? So one thing that is important in Lua is that, and in just about all programming languages, is we want to contain our variables in as small a scope as possible. Now, what does that mean? So as you can see, we define something in my var, and then we can print it out here. But out here, what if we don't want people to have access to my var? What if that contains your bank information? What if that contains value that if someone changed, it would break the program? So that's where local variables come in. So right now we've been creating everything global. That means everything in this program is available everywhere. But we want to keep things local so that it doesn't escape out here. It stays inside this block. So now if we try printing this right here and we type in Dustin, we'll see that it says nil. And that's because local confines the variable to the scope that's in. And this block right here, this block of code, is called a scope. All right, so anything between a then and then an else if, or between a then and an else, or between an else and an end is a block. So we can do something like my var, and then we can create another if 100 is equal to 100. We say local other is equal to 32. Now we can try printing other and set and dust it. As you can see, we get 2 nils because other is defined inside this block, and as soon as it goes out, it's no longer defined. But if we move it inside here, we can see that we get our value. And this will become way more apparent later on in the tutorial, I believe. So for right now, make every variable that you have local, because it's bad practice to keep everything global right now. All right, and I think the last big concept that we're going to cover in this tutorial, this episode, is the loop construct. So we want to be able to repeat actions. So right now, everything is linear. We basically type in code and it performs the steps from top to bottom, right? But what happens if we want to do something many, many times? Let's say we want to print the number 1 through 100. Well, obviously we could just do 1, then copy this value, change it to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this would work, but this would take absolutely forever. What if you want to print 1,000 numbers? So that's where loops come in. So loops come in many different flavors and varieties. There's the for loop, and then the while loop. So first we're going to talk about the while loop. So we're going to put while true, do. And then we're going to say print hello. All right, so a do is just like the then keyword. It opens up a block, which means we also have to end it, which also means there's a local scope right here, meaning my var is confined to this local scope. Anyway, so if we run this, we'll see that we're going to be printing hello for eternity, forever. If you actually want to stop it from running, click Control and then C, and that should cancel it, and then click yes, if it prompts you yes. So what happened? So right here it says while the value in this, while the Boolean in here is equal to true, do this action. So we can say 100 is equal to 42. If we run this, it's not going to do any code because this isn't true. So it's not going to run. So let's create a local value. Set it equal to 100. Local other set equal to 128. And let's say val is greater than other. Well, val is not greater than other, so it's just going to miss out. It's going to skip this. So val is less because val is equal to 100 and other is equal to 128. So now this is going to run forever. All right. So now let's take what we know about this and let's make it count from 0 to 1,000. All right. So we're going to say local counter is equal to 0. Actually, first off, I want you guys to see if you can figure this out. If you can, pause the video right now and try it out. If you can't figure it out, then continue watching and I'll give you the solution. All right, so let's continue on. So we're going to say local max is equal to 1,000 because we want to count from 0 to 1,000. All right. So we want to say while counter is less than max. Then we want to say do. All right, now if we print, this will go on for eternity. So we need to actually add, we want to make counter go up in value every single time. So right now, let's also print counter. If we run that, you'll see that it's printing all zeros. So let's actually move counter up towards max. So we're going to say counter is equal to counter plus 1. Now if we run this, we'll see that it counts all the way up to 999 because it says if counter is less than max, which 999 is less than max, because max is 1,000, it's going to print it. Then it's going to go back to the top and it's going to say is 1,000 less than max. Well, 1,000 is actually equal to max, so it's not going to print that. So if we actually wanted to print the 1,000, we're going to have to say less than or equal to. And then now it will print our glorious 1,000 number. So this right here might be, a little bit complicated to, it might seem a little weird. So what we're doing, we're just saying, take the value that's in counter and set it equal to the value that's in counter plus 1. So it's going to start off, it's going to say, what's in counter right now? Counter is equal to 0. So counter plus 1, so that's 0 plus 1 is equal to 1. So now when we go back to the top, counter is equal to 1. So now counter is equal to 1. It's going to set it equal to 1 plus 1. It's going to go back, which is 2, of course. It's going to go back to the top. Now counter is equal to 2. And it's just going to keep incrementing the value. So this is nice. We can do a lot of stuff with that while loop. But we're going to want to count up and count down numbers all the time. And we don't want to have to create a local variable every single time and then do a check and then increment it or decrement it, right? So there's a construct in Lua called for loop. So we're going to say for my val is equal to, let's set it equal to 0. And we're going to say 100 right here. And we're going to say do. Don't forget the comma. And again, do opens up the block, so we want to end that. So now let's try printing my val. If we print my val, you'll see that it prints everything from 0 to 100. So what this says is create a variable that starts at the value 100 and then count up till it's equal to 1, or sorry, let me restart that. Create a variable and give it the value 0. Now I want you to count up that variable until it's equal to 100. So if we want to set this, we can set this to 50, and we can count from 50 to 100. As you can see, we started at 50, and we count up to, oh, where'd it go? To 100. All right, now we can also count backwards. So let's set this equal to 100, and count down to 0. Now we have to, now this is going to still count up, and it's not going to do anything, right? So if we want to tell Lua how to count, we're going to put a new comma right there and then a value. So we're going to say -1, right? So it's going to count -1, it's going to start at 100 and count down. Now this is also useful, so let's go back to our 0 to 100 example. Now we can also leave this in, and let's set this to 2. So by default it counts up by 1, but if we want to count it by 2s, now it can. So 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. We can also count by 3s. So, 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. And you can do any value right here. So that's very useful for going over values in a loop. All right, guys, so the last thing I want to talk about is the repeat until construct. So basically this works exactly like the while loop, but it does this block first. So in the while loop, you'll remember that we do while false do, and then let's say we want to print a value. Well, if we run this, it's not going to print any value. Let me get rid of this right here. So let's just put this in a block comment. Okay, so if we run this, as you can see, it didn't print anything because it's false, right? So it's going to skip over this block of code. So what if you want it to print hello world at least once and then check if it's false? Well, that's the repeat until command. So if we copy the code that's up here, just copy that there, we'll see that it indeed, whoa. Let's try this. Yeah, there we go. So you'll see that it will indeed print it once, and then you'll check if it's true until it's true. And since it's until it's true, when it's equal to true, it will break out of the loop. So that's the last thing. So in the next episode, we'll be talking about more ways to control flow, and then also some other more powerful data types. So far we covered numbers, Booleans, and strings. But in the next tutorial, we're going to cover functions and then tables. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please share this video, please, if someone is interested in learning Lua. And yeah, give me feedback because I want to know how I can improve these. Maybe later I'll redo this tutorial series and add some more information if I missed it. I want to create a very good, in-depth tutorial series on how to actually write Lua code. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.